Hello everyone, I am Urania Sari and I will talk about engaging teenage learners in the foreign language lesson. As an ELT tutor and educational coordinator in Greece, I know how foreign language teachers in secondary education often have difficulties in engaging the students. This may be the outcome of several parameters, the effectiveness of the teaching methods included. There are many cases where teachers have little or no control over the teaching material that may not cover the learner's needs or match the teacher's personality and may even lack sufficient relevance to the current sociocultural situation. The latest educational approach, the 21st century pedagogy, has set specific aims for educators that involve development of specific skills such as innovation, research, and critical and creative thinking. Therefore, the need to support the lesson with material that is relevant, useful, and enjoyable emerges. Today, I will present a framework for designing lessons that engage teenage learners as they investigate and develop their multiple identities and shape their worldview. Using the tools provided by student-centered pedagogy, the latest version of the Common European Framework of Reference for Languages, and Bloom's taxonomy, I will present examples of learner-centered activities that promote differentiation of learning, cooperation, critical and creative thinking skills, and the proper use of ICT tools. My presentation aspires to assist foreign language teachers in providing meaningful, relevant, and enjoyable knowledge to their learners that will also be useful in the long run after they have entered higher education and maybe joined the workforce. Teaching teenagers is often a challenging experience, no matter the teaching subject involved. This is mainly due to the many variables that affect the teaching process, functioning beyond the teacher's control. Variables that involve the physical, emotional, and cognitive characteristics of this age group that affect communication and therefore need to be taken into consideration by language teachers. The significance of peers, the tendency to rebel against authority, the frequent mood swings, teenagers' concern about their body image, and the fact that they are in a vital stage of identity construction constitute variables that cannot be controlled by teachers but need to be considered in the planning of content and of the implementation of suitable teaching approaches and methodologies. Our proposed framework for student engagement adopts Ablas and Farman's definition of student engagement as a condition of emotional, social, and intellectual readiness to learn, characterized by curiosity, participation, and the drive to learn more. This definition implies that there are other factors involved in learning that can be handled by teachers. Viewing learning as a self-reflection process, Fonseca and Toscan add the affective factors involved: motivation, language aptitude, a teaching climate that fosters the development of self-confidence, the feeling of belonging, physical and emotional security, goal setting, challenging activities, and the teacher's role as a facilitator. This might also lead to the effective handling of disruptive behavior during the language lesson, as such behavior may be the result of boredom or the student's failure to meet the learning aims and even the teacher's attitude while responding to mistakes. This framework approaches the issue by focusing on what teachers can control. For example, we can control the content of our lessons by designing suitable activities or transforming those included in the coursebook. We can control the teaching methodology, the material, and the tools that we can add to the syllabus. At this point, it is important that we consider some essential preconditions. We provide students with knowledge that is meaningful, relevant, and useful for their lives, and we do this in an enjoyable way that caters for all learning profiles. This means that as teachers, we should be able to acknowledge our learners' strengths, needs, and interests. Building rapport from the very first lesson is a crucial part of this process, as is the practice of teacher reflection. So we propose a framework of student-centered methodology for effective engagement. Student-centered methodology that views education as a shared experience between the teacher and the students, but also among the students themselves. Having a more active and collaborative role in the learning process, learners interact without constant supervision by the teacher, while the teacher provides feedback or correction when questions arise and applies methods of formative assessment. Learning to work independently and participating actively in their own education, the students develop collaboration and communication skills and tend to be more interested in learning. Class management skills are important as well, so that boundaries are set from the beginning of the school year. In order to achieve effective engagement, our proposed framework encompasses the following practices of student-centered methodology. A communicative approach, proposing that language learning is facilitated by interaction and meaningful communication in the target language, with trial and error and the use of authentic material as significant parts of the learning process. Since emphasis is on meaning, content-based teaching reflects this approach as it seeks to explore meaning through content. At the same time, language learning is facilitated by activities that involve inductive and exploratory learning of the suggested rules of language use and of structure. In addition, we use cooperative learning methodologies since language learning is not a private activity but a social one and depends on interaction with others. The activities are presented in context and have a communicative purpose. The students interact in pairs, groups, and the plenary, orally and in writing, and are constantly exposed to the target language. The classroom becomes a community where students learn through collaboration and exchange. However, the teacher needs to consider that each student moves at different rates and has different needs and motivations for language learning. This is why differentiation of instruction is considered significant if we are to engage our students in what we want them to learn. A classroom environment that is conducive to language learning and provides opportunities for students to use language and reflect on the learning is important. Communication skills are developed in connection with grammatical development. Therefore, grammar is not taught individually but often arises from the communication activity. These practices are strongly connected to 21st century pedagogy that highlights the significance of critical and creative thinking development. Critical thinking and its techniques, observation, analysis, conclusions, and assessment encourage students to connect concepts, solve problems, and apply knowledge in new ways, such as incorporating different perspectives or linking different ideas. Creative thinking methodology that improves students' self-esteem, enhancing effective learning and the development of skills such as problem solving, self-confidence, and self-awareness. A creative classroom is actually a collaborative learning community where curiosity and problem solving are encouraged, and there are different ways of enhancing creativity, such as using the senses and out-of-the-box activities that develop divergent thinking. Experiential creativity is another way to engage teenage learners, such as the one-pager method and the approach of blackout poetry. Alternatively, students can create a collage or brochure or digital poster on the topic of the lesson or of the whole unit. Using pictures, art, excerpts of text, and pieces of text, students can also create their own poems and maybe haiku poems on a theme, write their own stories, even use digital storytelling tools, or add captions to images. Of course, activities become more appealing when they involve popular songs, art, and drama, depending on the students' suggestions and learning profiles. Here you can see some examples of blackout poetry. Goal setting for language development constitutes a significant part of our framework. Each activity must have one or more specific aims, each one contributing to the aims of the whole lesson and eventually to the whole unit. We propose that language proficiency goals are based on the Common European Framework descriptors, considering the student's language proficiency level. In addition, we recommend Bloom's taxonomy as an effective tool that has helped teachers set clear learning goals with measurable results. And finally, we propose student flexibility as a teaching practice, using subtopics based on our students' interests. Learning goals may also involve digital competence. Therefore, we propose the involvement of ICT in the language lesson so that learners develop skills that enable them to manage and create digital content, to communicate and collaborate through digital technologies, and understand issues related to personal data protection and copyright restrictions. And how do all these come together? How can they be combined in order to design engaging foreign language lessons? The following grids present indicative combinations of all the elements mentioned above, aiming at engaging teenage students to the foreign language lesson. Here, for example, we can see at the stage of introducing the topic, we can have brainstorming activities, activating previous knowledge, relating content to personal experience, with strategies such as creating word clouds, concept maps, categorizing vocabulary, and the CFR descriptors here come from the oral interaction skill, whereas for the strategies of discussing content of images, matching images to ideas, or narrating personal experiences, we have CFR descriptions coming from the oral production skill and some indicative Bloom taxonomy verbs. At the reading comprehension skill, we can use poem analysis, critical analysis of a text, or find examples of grammar structures, reflect the grammar structures, reflect on grammar structures, and create new examples. We can use strategies such as poem analysis, visual representation of information with, for example, blackout poetry, or creating a comic strip, or presenting main ideas in a web with sketch notes. We can also have choice boards with differentiated tasks and creative thinking questions, open questions that allow for different answers. The CFR descriptors here suggest that CFR descriptors come from text mediation skills with analysis and criticism of creative texts, expressing a personal response to creative texts, and visual representing information. For the oral comprehension skill, we can use videos, songs, audiobooks, podcasts, and films, and anything that matches our learners' interests and suggestions, their own suggestions. The strategies could be sequencing images, writing captions to images, understanding main points, catching important information, identifying speaker mood. Of course, writing captions to images here at our comprehension stage involves whole planning and discussion about the caption they are supposed to write. CFR descriptors here come from the audio-visual comprehension, from the oral comprehension and the oral interaction, and some verbs here also for your aims by Bloom taxonomy. For the oral production skill, the strategies we can use, we can implement, or discussing and presenting the results of online search, or use jigsaw technique, a debate maybe, simulations and role plays, and presentations of group work or pair work. CFR descriptors come from oral interaction and mediation skill, whereas for the written production, we can have strategies such as essay writing, report writing, persuasive speech writing, article, but also social media posts, stories, emails, even memes, and anything that's close to our students' interests. CFR descriptors here come from written production and written interaction. And again, we have some verbs here that indicative verbs that we can use for our aims. Finally, at the assessment or the end product at the end of the lesson, at the end of the unit, we suggest that there should always be such an end product at the end of the unit. We can have, for example, a group project or a web-based presentation. Students may create and present an e-poster or a video, brochure, podcast, ebook, class Padlet, and all these include the presentation. Strategies here can be discussion for project and planning, collecting information, SWOT analysis, presenting research results, self and peer assessment with rubrics, or transferring information from language 1 to target language and vice versa. CFR descriptors here come from the oral interaction skill, the linguistic competence skill, or the pragmatic competence skill, the sociolinguistic competence, and the mediation skill. And again, we have some indicated verbs for our aims. Our final thoughts at this point is that our framework has illustrated that a fully engaged foreign language class is the outcome of interplay of various factors and the implementation of methods that have been part of the teacher's toolbox for a long time. However, what works for one group of students may not be successful for another, as we all know. At that point, reflection is critical, and sometimes teachers realize that they are a big part of the solution. Eventually, it all comes down to who we are as teachers. In other words, what our teacher philosophy is and how ready we are to change. Thank you very much for your attention.